There's a car in a parking lot near you right now. Not abandoned, not broken down. Clean enough, with a phone charger plugged in and a jacket folded across the back seat. Someone slept in that car last night. They set an alarm, drove to work this morning, and clocked in on time. And tonight, they'll return to that same spot and run the same calculation all over again. This isn't a story confined to California or Portland or cities you associate with visible homelessness. It's happening in ordinary suburbs, in strip mall parking lots, in quiet neighborhoods where nobody is looking for it. And here's what makes it hard to wrap your head around. The people in those cars are not who you think they are. The official count says around 771,000 Americans were experiencing homelessness as of 2024. That's already the highest number ever recorded. A single-year jump of 18%, the largest on record. But that number almost certainly undercounts what's actually happening. America measures homelessness the way it measures most uncomfortable things. The main tool is something called a point-in-time count. One night, once a year, volunteers fan out across cities and try to count every person without stable housing. For people sleeping in visible locations, it works reasonably well. For people living in vehicles, it nearly always fails. These are people who park in commercial lots, industrial zones, quiet cul-de-sacs, places volunteers aren't walking at 2 a.m. They move every few nights, not because they're hiding anything, because staying in one spot too long means a knock on the window, a ticket, or a tow. Researchers who study this consistently say the real number is substantially higher than anything officially reported. Some estimates put the vehicle-dwelling population alone well above 100,000 nationally, possibly much higher. Nobody's measuring this right, and because the count is wrong, the policy response treats a crisis as if it's smaller than it is. Here's the part that tends to genuinely catch people off guard. A significant share of the people living in those vehicles have jobs. They commute, they answer emails, they earn a paycheck every 2 weeks. And then they go back to their car. Researchers call this population the working homeless. When most people first hear that phrase, something doesn't compute. It sounds like a contradiction. It isn't. It's arithmetic. Take a full-time worker earning somewhere between $18 and $22 an hour. After taxes, that's roughly $2,400 to $2,800 a month. Now look at what a basic one-bedroom apartment costs in most American cities today. Not a nice one, a basic one. In many markets, you're looking at $1,800 to $2,400 before utilities. Do that math yourself. After rent, there's almost nothing left. No food buffer, no transportation cushion, no room for anything to go wrong. And something always goes wrong. Housing economists use something called the 30% rule as the basic standard. Keep your housing costs under 30% of your income, and you have enough room left over for the things that keep a household functional. But right now, roughly 40% of American renters are already above that threshold. A meaningful share of those are spending 50% or more. When half your income is gone before you buy groceries, the math stops working the moment anything disrupts it. Here's how disruption actually happens, because it almost never looks the way most people imagine. There's a common assumption that losing housing is a slow process, that there are warning signs, that there's time to find alternatives. For most vehicle dwellers, that's not how it went. The trigger was fast. The fall was faster. A two-income household where rent already consumes most of the budget loses one of those incomes. Unemployment benefits where they apply rarely come close to covering rent in a high-cost city. Savings, if any exist, buy a few weeks. Then the numbers stop adding up. Landlords can't wait. Eviction moves quickly. Not over months, over weeks. Medical debt follows the same logic. A single hospital stay in the United States can produce bills in the tens of thousands of dollars. For families without solid insurance, the choice narrows fast. Pay medical debt or keep paying rent. For many people, it isn't really a decision. It's just a sequence that plays out. And divorce creates yet another version of the same problem. One household splitting into two means both people need independent housing at once, in a market where that often isn't financially possible on average wages. What consistently surprises researchers is the speed. How fast a household that looks stable from the outside can completely lose its footing. And once housing is gone, getting it back is much harder than getting it in the first place. To rent an apartment after losing one, you typically need a security deposit, a clean rental history, and a credit score that survived the disruption. Most vehicle dwellers don't have those things anymore. Not because they weren't responsible, because losing housing tends to take all of it with you. So they can't compete in the rental market. The car becomes a longer-term solution than anyone planned. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. Economists describe this cycle as the cost of being poor. Financial instability doesn't just reflect a lack of resources. It actively generates new costs that make rebuilding harder. Parking tickets in areas that turn out to be restricted. Impound fees when a ticket goes unpaid. Repair bills when the car that's also your home breaks down at the worst possible moment. For someone with a financial cushion, these are inconveniences. For someone without one, any of them can be catastrophic. And without a stable mailing address, applying for assistance programs gets harder. Managing bills gets harder. Even basic banking becomes more difficult the longer you're in the situation. The things that could help you get out become harder to reach the longer you stay in. Now let's talk about what actually built this, because it didn't build itself by accident. Housing costs have been climbing for more than a decade. In many American cities, rents are up 30 to 40% over the past 10 years, with some markets seeing far more. Wages in service, retail, and logistics work, jobs that represent a huge share of what Americans actually do, have barely moved in real terms. In 1970, there was a surplus of affordable housing in this country. Today, there are only 37 affordable homes available for every 100 extremely low-income renters. That's not a market correction. That's a structural failure built across decades of specific decisions. Zoning restrictions blocked the construction of multifamily housing in high-demand areas for years. Investment in public and subsidized housing fell well short of what population growth required. Affordable rental stock was steadily converted into higher-priced units. These weren't natural market outcomes. They were policy choices with consequences that were entirely foreseeable. Inflation accelerated an already deteriorating situation. Since 2020, grocery prices rose 22 to 28% nationally. Utilities jumped 30 to 50%. Auto insurance climbed 20 to 40%. These are the fixed costs of staying alive, and they all move sharply upward at the same time wages barely moved. Over 1 million students in the United States experience some form of homelessness each year. Federal education guidelines classify students living in cars, motels, shelters, or temporary arrangements as homeless, and school districts are legally required to track this. A meaningful share of that million are in vehicles with their families right now. Think about what that actually looks like. A kid who slept in a back seat last night still walks into school this morning, still has to sit down, focus, take notes, and pass tests. Still has to manage the social weight of being around peers while making sure nobody finds out. There's also a significant and often overlooked demographic shift in who vehicle homelessness affects. Older adults, those 55 and older, are the fastest growing segment of people experiencing homelessness in America. Social Security income is no longer keeping pace with what it actually costs to live. The number of older adults experiencing homelessness is projected to triple between 2017 and 2030. People who worked their entire lives, who did what they were supposed to do, are ending up in parking lots because fixed incomes don't scale with rent increases. And women with children are disproportionately represented among vehicle dwellers compared to other homeless populations. Compared to people sleeping in tents or doorways, people in vehicles are more likely to be in family units, more likely to be experiencing homelessness for the first time. In San Diego, nearly 70% of people in vehicle-based safe parking programs reported this as their only experience of homelessness in the past 3 years. They weren't chronically unhoused. They were people a single crisis away from stability who ran out of runway before anything caught them. Cities have responded to this population largely through enforcement. More than 120 municipalities introduced new overnight parking restrictions in recent years. Bans on vehicle residency near schools, parks, or entire residential zones. Towing operations that can remove a family's only shelter while they're at work or picking up a child. Research consistently shows these approaches don't reduce the number of people without housing. They move them. The population doesn't shrink, it just becomes harder to count and harder to reach.